Well, if it isn't, it started. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. How is everyone?
Fine.
Good.
That's good.
So when are you moving?
I don't know.
When are you going to make the jump?
Well, it's down to either Phil's gonna come here or I'm gonna go there. He's got an application in at USC, and I'm still working on my portfolio. But we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Maybe he'll move before you move.
But then you know
That's
what?
what
Turn right
Pastor
around and
says,
move up
Just for a
there.
minute.
Yeah.
Go back together.
Wait a minute. I'm not hearing Sheldon. Do I have one of these
Sorry,
wrong?
it was my
No,
fault.
it's fine,
Oh.
Sheldon.
Oh, you're trying to talk undercover now.
No. I accidentally had the thing on mute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how is everyone? How has everyone's week been?
Fine. Fine,
Good.
fine,
Interesting. Fine.
Good, fine, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Janice,
What?
your weekend?
It was
I mean,
fine.
week thus far.
It was good.
Oh, okay. I don't see anyone.
I know, we're all sitting on the other side of the room.
I see.
Here, I'll see if I can help you out a little bit.
Oh.
We'll have to move it when other people get here.
Hello.
Oh, now he can see us?
See, this is Sheldon's camera right there.
Oh.
Just knocked over.
Is that the one that's supposed to go on top of the, replaces the one on top of the TV?
Yeah. Here comes the morning.
But this is not a, it doesn't do the whole thing?
Hmm?
It doesn't show the whole room like the last one did?
The last one didn't show the whole room either, but it's not as wide, so
Oh, okay.
you can only see like a little bit.
So how do I
Here.
adjust it for everyone? Hello? How do I adjust it for, like, now they're on
Hey,
that side?
Cheryl.
There's nothing.
Hello.
How
So do
are
I
you?
turn it back
I'm
that way?
doing well.
I guess we'll people in here.
Okay.
Happy birthday,
Hey.
Sheldon.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, boy. See if we
How have all your weeks been?
Good, good. We could have had a party and you could have watched.
It's true. Blow out the candles for him.
Yeah.
And we could have savored your cake for you and the ice cream.
Nail it.
Are you doing anything for your birthday, Sheldon?
Nothing that I have in mind at the moment.
No special bars?
Bars?
Yes.
Bars?
Don't play innocent now, you busted.
Totally busted.
Nothing in particular is planned at the moment.
You want us to come up there and show you what to do?
Yeah, I can jump on the plane.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't make us represent now. We'll turn it up.
Those people from South Carolina.
Yeah.
They never come back to New York.
I'm trying to send us back home.
Everyone from South Carolina, get out. Stay out.
We have a good time. Oh, Lordy.
Was there anything anyone in particular had, like any questions or anything?
I have a comment. Seems like everything is magnified now. Seems like at work, women getting more catty. Just there are a lot of changes I noticed. Seems like we get messier. Does that mean, would that happen to have anything with light being more put into the earth, or was just exposing more stuff?
Explain a little bit more in regards to the being cattier and more messy.
it's just like, it just seemed like to me, it's like a dog eat dog world. I guess it's always been like that, but look like it's now more intensified. Or either I'm just taking it personally. I think about the stuff that's on TV, you know, there's nothing with any substance anymore.
It's always been that way. I'm just more aware of it.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet what's going on at work. So, for example, not too long ago, with the things that were going on, like with Ferguson and Eric Garner and things like that, when you talk about matters of the heart, it wasn't as if something had automatically changed as far as how people felt. It was just that the physical manifestations of those things were able to be seen. When we talk about things being exposed as well. So it's not as if all of a sudden these things have started to take place, just more so that you see or notice the manifestations of these particular things. So, and that's regardless of even if these people who are, all of us are doing certain things, whether or not we were even aware that we felt certain ways about things, but all of a sudden I guess as a collective, our actions are reflecting those things. So there's a difference between what we actually see that is that happens physically is already is basically an effect of the conditions of our heart as a collective, and our hearts being the cause, if that makes any sense. So you're just seeing the result of a condition that we're already in. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that seeing those things are bad either. It's just because once the same thing when you have when you're very, very emotional, you get very upset about some particular thing, something is said, etc. It's once that particular thing happens that you have the opportunity to better understand yourself, or better understand that this particular thing you do not care for. Why is it that you do not care about this thing? Why do you feel this particular way? So, in a way, it's just shining. When we say coming to the surface, it's just exposure, shining a light on that particular thing. But it's not that particular thing that is taking place necessarily that has to be dealt with. You have to look at the root of the. I don't even want to call it the issue, the matter. Look at the issue, the root of the matter to dig deeper and see further in regards to understanding.
So what we're seeing is what's internally, what's inside of us.
Yes.
For security purposes, this call has been terminated. Please contact your moderator and verify the time and date of your conference call.
But I'm also saying for all of us to be careful not to label these things as being a bad and terrible thing, just because I don't know about all of you, but as far as I'm concerned, I was kind of raised and taught that certain emotions or being very emotional, letting things affect you in a certain way, period, was bad and not good. And so it was better to actually to basically keep all those things under wraps and have composure and things like that, not to let anything affect you. So even though it may be things that would be affecting you, you would kind of just subdue it and act as if it doesn't exist, and that was the thing to do. So I'm saying to be careful not to have that mindset when you notice certain things.
Okay.
It is extremely healthy on a physical and spiritual level to actually to let things take place and then to actually deal with them versus just subduing them, putting them in a box and just throwing them somewhere as if they never exist. it never existed or ignored them, etc.
Okay.
But like Wise also, it is a part of yourself as well that has. We see certain things depending on, I guess, the lens of our inner beings or the conditions of ourselves that we look at the world. So, the worlds that we see are the worlds that we are more so familiar with, and our perceptions align in that way.
Okay.
Yeah. Were there any other questions or thoughts, etc.? All you seem to be a little bit warmer than the last time.
We are a little warmer.
Much warmer.
That's good.
I don't even have any notes from last time.
Miss Barbara,
Yes.
did Pastor Richard tell you what he was speaking on today?
No, he did not.
Okay.
He just pulled up.
Okay, yeah, your help has arrived.
Help is on the way.
That's fine. Well, I didn't hear the last thing someone said.
I was just saying that your help has arrived.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was just reviewing this 11/11 stuff, and so much has happened between now and then, between then and now. And we have seen so much of this, it's almost like it was predicted, all of that stuff. And it's as if seeing it, you know, it's like looking through, we're looking through quote unquote time and looking ahead. Because we've seen manifestations of all of that.
And what 11/11 you talking about? What's up there?
Yeah, time and money and time and balancing of energies and not being victims ourselves and also not seeing mankind as being a victim. When we're not victims, then we can see that we don't have to. We can intervene for mankind not to be a victim. And you know, the other thing that's come through is that when people out there, like the Trayvon Martins, et cetera, are actually true victims in the physical world, that we can see beyond that. We can see, we know that they're victims, but we can see beyond that for the benefit of mankind, and that's real growth. So that was an important, I think, insight that we had for our own growth and for the growth of mankind. I think that we are past the part of not only not seeing ourselves as victims, but the part that we're responsible for ourselves. We're responsible for what we think, what we say, what we do. You know, we're responsible for you know, the snotting and the crying and, you know, and we even laugh about that. We can laugh about that now. You know, I did. I snotted and I cried and then I got up.
Right.
I took responsibility. I knew that I did that and I took responsibility for myself and I got up and I moved on.
But you know what, too, Barb?
And I didn't blame anybody else. I just did it and I got up and moved on.
But I see a lot of things are manifesting quickly. It seems like more quicker now than it has been in the past. I don't know, maybe I'm just becoming aware of that as well, too. But it's like, even with a thought, I have to be careful what I think, because things is like...
That's because you're not letting the distractions get in your way. And when we are mindful of what distractions do for us, you know, it's like we put them aside. And when we don't let them distract us, we can focus on those things that are important, those things that happen immediately.
So where are we?
That's where we are.
Where is it?
We're just
I got a question. I want to understand, what does it mean to die second death?
What's the
In
context?
Revelation, when it talks about dying second death.
in what context? Revelation, you said?
That's what I want to know.
I have to read the
What chapter is that, Pastor?
I think it's chapter 1. Probably where did I say that?
And I bought her 2 of those things. 2 different kinds. I didn't buy her the manservant to walk behind her.
Who doesn't want an answer?
I could use one of those. Any kind.
211, 26.
Where is it?
211,
211.
yeah, 2006, 2014, all trying to come out second.
Okay, he that heareth hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death.
What chapter is that? 1?
2:11.
2 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I want to know, I want to understand more clearly about what is that second death. Yeah, you said 26, Bessie?
20 and 6, I think.
So what is the first step?
I was thinking that the first death is the death that we're born into by virtue of not understanding the scriptures. We're born dead. Suppose that the first death is religion.
I was thinking death to self.
The second death would the second death be where the word soul in the Aramaic means self, life, a life energy, and it speaks to the idea of self. So the second death would be the death of self. The only way a second death could come is that there is second life. In order to understand the second death, you have to understand what life is, right? Somebody talk to me.
We got processing that. We don't know. Then we can think.
The first death.
Boom.
You gotta understand, I think you gotta know what the first
That
step
wasn't
is.
my week.
Hey.
The first death is, suppose that, okay, we're born into this world, right? And when we grow up as kids, we see all of these things and we have all this innocent stuff about us, and then we're taught to forget it. You know, we're taught to buy into everything that we see with our eyes or everything that we experience with our senses. But that beyond what we see with our eyes, we're told that it doesn't exist. That's what we're taught. Now, we are brought into this religious setting that does not look at the scriptures from the perspective which it is given, written. Right?
Yeah.
I'm on here on the ground. And
Wait, finish the sentence.
so if we are born with an not necessarily understand it, but with insight into the other realm, and that is taken away from us by what we are taught about this world, then is that not the first death? Would that not be a death?
Death to self, death to the ego.
But is that death? But is that the first death to self? My question is,
You're ahead of him.
if that's ego, right? Then that kid who grows up playing with these imaginary friends and never get the names mixed up, then we take that away from him. I tell him that doesn't exist, and then we get that child to believe that you can't do what Jesus did because Jesus was God. But then that child reads in the scripture that Jesus said that you can do what I've done. So now the child doesn't buy into being able to do what Jesus did because he's been taught that he can't. So is that not death? Are we not teaching death?
Well, if you say death is, okay, for want of a better one word, something, separation, then if we're buying into the first separation, that why not? Yes, like you're saying, that's the first death. And is the scripture saying avoiding the second death?
No, it's saying, avoid the second death.
Okay,
yes.
so the second one is but we're into intellect is non-existent.
Yeah.
Where the second one is the logical.
Aside from us,
the logical conclusion of that, what's encapsulated in that first separate existence, if you can say that. So you die.
Okay.
So to avoid the second death, you have to come out of, away from, and find that connection.
Let's go back. I want to go back to the first one.
You got a beginning and an ending. Those are two deaths.
Okay.
The entering into is the first, because of what you're entering into, the state of separateness. Right?
So
and you're dying from within that.
to come out of the religious setting
Solution.
into the understanding of the light, that's what helps you avoid the second death.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can we go back for
Yes,
clarity?
ma'am.
When we're born into this realm, is that a death? Or are we bringing, is that part of what we still hold on to until we're taught differently?
When we're born into this realm, I don't see that as being a death. I see that as being an opportunity for life. But we bring about the death by taking away all of the spiritual essence of that being that has come into this earth.
Okay, all right,
And,
I'll hold that.
and in many cases it's unavoidable because of the way people grow up, especially in this society. We are taught more poignantly, religion is the quickest way to die. Because
I can see that.
because it doesn't teach you anything. For example, if the gospel, and I use this very loosely, the word gospel, if the gospel of that Jesus taught, if that is life, then religion has never been a source of life. Since the entrance of Rome and Constantine, there's never been a source of life. It has always taught death, and the reality of it is seen in the symbolism. You will never see a Roman church with Jesus off the cross. He's always on the cross. That's death. You never see an empty cross. You can never have a true separation between the manipulative politics of the society and the quote-unquote church. That will never happen. Because it is the political society that gave the church its power. Christianity got its power from the political powers of that time. The Roman Church, the Catholic Church, the Christianity from Catholicism could not have existed without the armies of Rome. And that is true to today. Therefore, Christianity, as it is taught, has no life in it. It is an agent of death and greed and lust.
So is death not a continual thing?
No, it doesn't have to be.
If it's a state of illusion,
It doesn't have to be.
it's up to you.
It's an individual decision. Then it becomes a collective decision. It is an I am decision. The I am is the individual. But when the I ams come together, it becomes collective. If you have a desire to live, that's an individual decision. Then you connect yourself with others who have the same desire, then it becomes a collective decision. However, if you have a desire to continue in religion because mama did it or because that's the most popular thing to do, then you have elected to continue in death.
Okay.
See, death is not necessarily the cessation of breathing or the end of biological life. As a matter of fact, bio life is much dependent totally on spiritual life. Without the spirit, there is no bio life. When your spirit leaves this body, it's dead. There's no bio life without the spirit. So, but then if the spirit is dead, then so is the body. Now, the death that of which I'm speaking is seen through the responses of the body itself. The body responds to the concept of death by making every attempt to die, sickness and disease. Does that make sense? Hello?
Say that part again.
Well, I don't know if I'd say it quite that way, but okay, it's just saying it. I'd say if the you is living this delusion, then the body as a manifestation of you shows you, if you want, the weakness or vulnerability of that understanding. So it can't help but be diseased.
And that, the
It's
meaning,
not trying to die, it can't be otherwise.
the translation, the word in the Aramaic that's translated as sickness should have been translated as weakness. Because in the Eastern, in the Syriac Aramaic, there is no word for what we call sick. Because sick denotes a certain feeling in the body. But weakness, any type of weakness in the body is determined to be a sickness.
Well, the other thing too is that as long as we think this illusion is life, then the body is a corpse anyway. As long as we think this illusion is, as long as we define this illusion as life,
But then,
until we define
right.
it any differently, the body is a corpse.
Well, Jesus said, when he said, take, eat, for this is my body which is broken for you, he actually said, this is my corpse. So he described it as a corpse because aside from him, that's exactly what it is. This is my corpse, which is broken for you. So is it a corpse when you realize who you are in relationship to it, or is it a corpse continuously, from the beginning? My contention is that the spirit itself is dead before it comes to an understanding of what it is and what it was created to be. And see,
now, what do you mean by it's dead? Because
dead,
when you talk about
I'm talking about
the
dead
spark
to
of divinity,
separation, as Richard brought about.
Separation.
Separation. That's the deadness of it. See, dead.
It's not animated. It's not enlivened.
Right.
It's not quickened. It's not.
And death is the lack of animation. And animation is not necessarily something that's moving physically as much as it is spiritual movement. How many times do we talk about the noise of the movement that's internal, that we feel inside? Mm-hmm. You see? So animation is not necessarily the movement of, the external movement of the body itself. Now, it is my contention that when a child comes into the earth, it is both animated spiritually and physically. The spirit animates it. You see a baby looking, you say, what are you looking at? And it's focused on something, but you don't see anything. Or you hear the child goes into a toddler, and the toddler's sitting on the floor talking to all these other friends. But you don't see anything. And when the toddler gets older, you begin to tell the toddler, nobody's there. So what are you doing? You're beginning to shut down the third eye. You're beginning to shut down the ability to see into the other world. Let me give you an example. There's this young lady, must be about 18, 19. When she was born, she had the Grady First Church. When she was born, when she was a few months old, I can't remember how old she was, but her mom went into her, and she was blue. She was not breathing. She was cold. So she took her from the crib, and her sister says, let's take her to Great Faith. So they took her to Great Faith, Linda laid hands on her, and she started breathing again. Now, this young lady, from that point on, has always been able to see stuff. She was good with that until she began to listen to people tell her how frightening it's supposed to be. And the reality and the way we know she was seeing things is because you could pass a cemetery and she would see people and she would describe what they had on, and that's what they were buried in. But she had no idea of that. That's how clearly she saw things. And to this day, she's frightened because of what she was taught. You see what I'm talking about? So she's teetering on the edge of life and death. If she buys into the understanding of the third eye, that if someone really wanted to hurt you, you'd be already hurt because you wouldn't see them anyway until it's over with. I mean, you know, so what's the point of being afraid of it? But she's been taught that, just like we have been taught to be sick. Just like we have been taught that we have to die from something. Just like we have been taught that sickness, certain sicknesses is the end of life as we know it. That's what we've been taught. So what happens if we are taught that life is unending, that it's a continuous process? Does it change the way we see our physical selves in terms of bringing our bodies to a place where it does not have to experience sickness? Example. We have been at Great New Faith since 1986, 85 or 86. And since then, there has been 2, 3, 4, 5 deaths since 86, and Carl was number 5, and the youngest. All the rest of them are like 7, 8 years old. 5. And before I understood any of this, I had a badge at the hospital to visit folks. And I had the epiphany one day. As long as I have a badge to visit sick folk and have a sick list, then I'm going to have sick people. And I refused to use the badge at the hospital, and I got rid of the sick list, and I began to teach, wherever you preach, that's what you get. If you preach life, you get life. If you preach death, you get death. If you preach sickness, you get sickness. So I refused to talk about having to die with something. I refused to talk about you go get sickness, you go get the flu, you need that kind of thing, the sickness thing. And as a result of that, I have not had, I can't remember the last time I've had a hospital visitation from people who've been hospitalized. I can't remember the last time. So there are people who say, well, your group is so small. It doesn't matter. I know a group smaller than this who got people who are in and out of the hospital. That doesn't happen. Now, having said that, if that can happen, and it is happening, because of the desires of the covering, how much more powerful is that if it becomes the desires and the beliefs of those who are being covered? Can you see? Suppose every single one who's covered by me embrace the same concept and began to make application of that concept to the ones that you cover in terms of your children, the people who you care for, that kind of thing. How much more powerful is that? If that happens, then the first one to receive that life, unending life, or that end of the concept of sickness would be you. And this all started many, many years ago. Every single year I had the flu, and I got tired of having the flu and decided I'm not going to have it anymore. So I haven't had it. And I don't take a flu shot because that's BS. The flu shot is just a way to make money. How you go develop a flu vaccine, and you don't even know what strand of flu is coming. That doesn't make sense to me. And the best vaccine ever been developed, you got a 50-50 chance of getting the flu. So you got a 50-50 chance of getting it without it. So you know, that's crazy to me. So I made a decision it wasn't going to happen to me. I have not had the flu. I've not had it. And I'm saying that to say, suppose you did the same thing. And not just the flu, anything. Carla said, cancer is not going to take my life. She dies at age 44, and on her death certificate it said natural causes. How different is that? You know, why was she able to do that? How could she make that determination? How could she live, 4 years plus past the time that she had been given to live, with no change in the cancer that was in her body? As a matter of fact, with an increase of it, with it constantly increasing, with it not being abated at all. There was no, what you call that stuff when you go back into remission. There was no remission at all. None. Zero remission. Constantly growing in different places. So how could that happen? It had to be because the mind is what gives life to the body. But the mind cannot give life to the body if the mind doesn't know what life is. If the mind believes that you have to die with something, then you will. The mind is what's trained by religion or by the scriptures. It doesn't matter whether it is a denominational religion or education. Education is some people's religion. So the mind is trained by something. The question is, what is the something that you will allow to train your mind? When we sit in this room and we talk about we need to separate ourselves from those things that we have been taught that are not in line with the scripture, all we are saying is that we need to learn how to retrain our minds so that our minds can, in essence, be renewed. Right? Mm-hmm. So when that happens, then we begin to understand that it is the mind that determines what the body does by virtue of how it controls the brain. It sends its messages through the brain. Suppose that those children who we see as being autistic, or suppose those children have such an insight into what's happening constantly in the other realm until their brains cannot translate it. Suppose they're beyond that. Anything that we can think of. Suppose that we think that we say that they're in their own little world. They're in another world. Suppose that that's what they really are. Suppose that their minds are so broad from a spiritual perspective until this realm cannot translate it or contain it. Wouldn't that be something?
That's interesting because the onset, well, not the onset, but the diagnosis is generally around age 2 or 3. So it's, and we talked about last week, around 2, 1.5, 2 is generally when, we start to teach children that they belong on this plane, this realm.
Yeah.
And if they are not, or if they sort of resist coming into this realm, it's possible.
And that same child who resists coming into this realm, walk up to a piano and plays Beethoven. Where does it come from? How does that happen? So, that in itself speaks volumes about the power of the mind. But what we do, we see this child or those children like that as lacking something, when in essence we're the ones who seem to be lacking. Because anything that doesn't fit our agenda is less than what we are. And I want to get back to the rulership of the church and stuff in a few moments, and related to what's going on today. Who was that? Shut
Except for aliens.
Yeah.
We are aliens.
Are there more of those?
So with the first death, yes. The first death is, I'm just elaborating on what Pastor said. The first death is that the first death is having those experiences that actually come through trials and tribulations, where you just only, or for us not to believe we are what it is that we think we are. So when we come first, I'm trying to be careful in how I actually explain this. When we come acclimated with the world and we identify with the world in a certain manner, thinking that this particular, a particular thing is who and what we really are. And the first death is automatic and necessary and part of the, I guess you would say, the process of having trials and tribulations and things of that nature to get you out of that mindset, which is purpose. Breaking down those scriptures, starting off with the 8th verse, in regards to the trial and tribulation, and it considers that as being a great treasure or a great deal. And the part that is the second, the part that causes the second death, or those things outside of us. So it's those things that we do to those little kids that we were just talking about, who have these matters and they see all these different things. So, and we are claiming to be the ones who know and are leading, but we're leading them from a limited a point of basically still going through our own trials and tribulations, and this being under the those little kids who we're trying to instruct. So that part we're talking about in verse 9, to the others that say they are Jews, but who are really not, except they are the followers of Satan, which just means that when it says they are the synagogue of Satan, that means they are the followers of Satan, which is having a lack of understanding themselves of who they really are. And so with those trials and tribulations, when we talk about the second death, that's not meaning second as just in two, and you just go through one death and two death. But that second is actually in the Aramaic reoccurring death. So it's as if you don't accept the trials and the tribulations to understand who you really are, then you continue to go through a particular cycle that you cannot get out of, that is actually reoccurring. In regards to, and that's also relying on the particular mind what Pastor was just talking about. Like, for example, when he was talking about the death, not the death list, that's kind of like what it was, though. That's why I said that in my head. But the list he had at the hospital to go and visit those who actually died. Even if he did not understand this from an intellectual standpoint and put two and two together, just because his mind actually, he had that set in his head, so to speak, just that list, where the need and the use of that list has to be fulfilled, which means that there will continue to be people for him to go and visit in that particular hospital. That's how everything works in regards to us creating things. You don't even have to think about it intellectually, but subconsciously what you actually think there needs to be a reason for it, and therefore what is materialized around you is the manifestation of those particular things. So, for example, when you were just also talking about that the flu shot, as long as you have flu shots and you have something to fight off the flu, then you're going to need that flu in order for it to fight, because we are creating that flu by just. When we create something, we create the opposite of it as well, because by creating the opposite, it allows that particular thing that we are creating to exist. If that makes any sense.
See, my contention is that when you begin to see that you are life and you believe who you are, you believe that you one with the Father, you believe that you just as Jesus was on earth. When you believe that, then you don't fight anything. There's nothing to fight. Well, I mean, because anything that you fight, you attach yourself to it. So you recognize what it is and keep it moving. If you for example, if I'm wanted to ward off or to fight off the flu or to fight off condemnation or to fight people who speak things disparagingly about me, or to deal with those things is to attach myself to those things. But if they say it or do it and I ignore it, it takes the power from it. But if I fight it, it continues. Why? Because in order for it to continue, it has to have life. I'm the one who gives it life by fighting it. It's like when people would say, if someone says something about you and they say, don't stir it. They say, let it go. Because the more you fight it, the bigger it's going to get. But the moment that you ignore it, then that brings it to a screeching halt. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I don't believe that there are any battles to be fought, but there is always a sense of awareness to be gained. And the more we become aware, the less we have a need or a desire to fight. See, Christianity, Islam, Judaism fights. It fights. Period. The way they fight is different now, but all of them fight. The Christianity that existed prior to the 4th century, there were no fights. They just believed what they believed. And, for example, if in Turkey, there are caves that were carved out prior to Constantine, during the period of Constantine rather, where the Christians hid. They actually lived in these, there were so many carved into this mountain, it looked like a cocoon. So they lived in these caves rather than just fight. And think about the ones who were burned at the stake or stoned to death, who simply said, I give up the ghost. What would that dude name that they stoned to death? Stephen. Then no problem. He did not fight. So I'm not talking about it in the sense of what we call being passive, but because that's the difference between passivity and believing who you are. Huge difference. Most people who are passive are actually cowards at heart. They just don't want them to fight. No, nothing to say nothing. But when you believe who you are, you honestly believe that Scripture that says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. You actually believe that. Now, it did not say, vengeance is mine, says God. it says the Lord, which is different than Elohim. So Elohim doesn't have a battle. Yahweh does. So if the battle is not yours, it's the Lord, it's Yahweh's, why fight it? I mean, that's the scripture, isn't it? Why fight it? So when I say to you, regardless of what people say, let it go. It doesn't matter. Why? You will never come into a realization of the power that you are until you can maintain who you are in the midst of controversy that's directed at you. It's easy to do it when it's directed at someone else. But when it's directed at you, that's a whole different ballgame. Or directed at someone close to you. You have to be able to maintain your spiritual integrity in the face of all of that. Every bit of it. And I say to you, as an example, that there's someone who's very, very close to me who was raped. And I was going to deal with it. But when I got to the person to deal with it, all I could do was forgive the person. I did not go there for that purpose. I promise you. But that's all I could do. And from that point to this one, that's what has helped me to see the power of forgiveness. That's what has helped me to see that you cannot pick and choose what and who you're going to forgive. That's what helped me to see that. And once I began to see that, then I began to see something else. As long as I maintain the spiritual integrity that I have become aware of, no matter what is brought against me, it can never be sustained. Ever. Not because of my strength in battle, but because of my strength in refusing to battle. It takes more strength to refuse to battle than it does to go to battle. Because we always talk about, nobody gonna run over me. I'm tired of taking stuff. Why I always have to be the bigger person? That's who you are. Either you are or you're not. Now, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm thinking, but I can't quite articulate it. Because I don't want to go back to my old jiu-jitsu kind of thing.
You can't help it.
No, I bored you guys enough of that years ago. But it is a little bit like that. What you're doing is redefining what the idea of fighting is. Maybe that then becomes not the appropriate term, because we think of it as a physical confrontation, one winner, one loser, people hurt, people killed, etc. It changes the nature of conflict, or whatever those words would then become. You know what I'm trying to say? Because one of the principles in jiu-jitsu is, if you're that aware and confident of yourself, you choose to hurt the other person. You don't do it like you've seen in Ferguson and other places where people do it out of panic and fear. So the real admiration comes with the person who deflects it. And by doing that, creates another opportunity and changes the whole dynamic. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think it's that kind of thing. And which means that you don't just say, here, take me. You find another way to improve the situation, maybe, but not in that sort of state that we seem to be in now, militaristically. You know, it's got to be that kind of thing. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a segment of what I wanted to get to anyway, in relationship to the whole concept of being a superpower in terms of physical conflict, which is the bunch of BS, because
it's the crudest.
It's barbaric.
Yeah.
The idea of that is selective. It's selective. Example. There were 12 people who were killed in France, and the whole world went crazy. it has been reported that there were approximately 2,000 in the village that were killed in Nigeria, and nobody said a doggone word. So what's the difference? Black lives don't matter, regardless of where they are, to certain people. That's what's been said. Terrorism is terrorism, regardless of who is perpetrated against. The other thing, the idea of free speech is BS. They arrested a comedian in France for having some anti-Semitic jokes, for telling anti-Semitic jokes. They arrested him and shut the show down. Where is the free speech? That's BS. When we look at this, we ask ourselves, why? Well, when you look at that, why is it that there is a law that says you cannot speak against a quote-unquote Jewish religion, but it's okay for Islam and anything else? Why? Because there is no separation between church and state. Church and state are the same. The state feeds religion. If you don't believe that, then stand up and tell the truth about Christianity in this country and see what happens to you.
Well, the Pope said that in the Philippines.
Well, what the Pope actually said, that you ought not be picking at folk religion. That one you got shot.
Said you speak about,
and that's fine, but that's fine until you talk about Catholicism.
Well, but that's what was the other side of what he was saying to me. You talk about my mother, you may get a punch in. That's what the Pope said, right? You talk about my mother,
which is the church.
You may get a punch in the face.
So
change a few words.
That's the whole. So that's my point. My point is that this whole idea of volatility that we see represented throughout the world is a result of the volatility that's in the realm of the spirit as a result of the gospel never having been delivered. It has never been preached. That's where the volatility comes from. It has not been preached. You can't preach a gospel when you stand in a pulpit and pray for God bless America and nobody else. Bless our soldiers in Iraq when they invaded the country that they have no business in. You cannot tell me that you can preach the gospel with those kinds of things.
And you can't preach a gospel that's a partial gospel when half the gospel is not in the book.
Right. Absolutely. You don't know what it is because it's not there. And I cannot count the people who have sent messages since Carla's funeral that they want to learn how to study or understand from the Aramaic because what was said makes more sense than anything they ever heard. And I'm not talking about preachers, I'm talking about just individual people. Now, the problem with that is you cannot teach people how to understand concepts. The problem with that is you will not be able to teach it or to understand it unless you have a teacher. You can't be the teacher necessarily unless you have been chosen. It's just that simple. It does not matter how much you study. It does not matter what you read. If you have not been chosen to teach, you will not be able to do it. You will not understand it. And I know this from the years that I struggled to understand. I had all the original words and concepts and still could not bring them together to make sense until the fullness of time. So the gospel that is foreign to the book of the Bible, the gospel that's foreign to it is a gospel that is gives more spiritual insight than anything in the book. Thomas gives more spiritual insight than anything in the book. Because the book talks about Jesus healing folk, but Thomas talks about what he said. And he also talks about the conflict between the disciples in relationship to Jesus, in the way Jesus related to Mary. So there are a lot of things in the gospel that have not been taught. And the perpetuators of this religion that is not the gospel is the Catholic Church. And I don't care whether you're Baptist or Methodist or Presbyterian, you're still Catholic. Because that's the womb that you came out of. And that is the crux of the volatility in the world today. The lack of spiritual understanding and acceptance.
You said the phrase chosen to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Help me understand what you mean then by chosen. I mean, I have a sense,
Mm-hmm.
but if you would.
Many are called, but few are chosen, is what Jesus said. Many have been extended an invitation to come, but they refuse to come. But those who are chosen have such a strong impression upon them to do what they've been chosen to do until they find it very difficult, if not impossible, to resist doing it. This, what I do today, is something that I resisted wholeheartedly. And I've told you many times before that when I decided that I was not going to travel this journey into this understanding, or towards understanding, because I didn't have what I have now, of course. And I went into this church to preach, and I was not going to talk about speaking in tongues, none of the other stuff, and nothing. My mind just went blank with everything else that was on the paper, and I ended up preaching the stuff that I know the truth to be truth rather, and never could back away from that. And felt a strong impulse to answer the questions that people were asking, even though the answers were going to be controversial and going to always get me in trouble. It doesn't matter, or it didn't matter then, but now it matters even less. So the idea of being chosen is extremely important. Now, I can sit here today and say, Rika, you're a teacher. That's the end of Rika. That's like Matthias being appointed to be one of the disciples. That's the end of it. Because I don't feel that. I don't have any sense of that at all. And I do not reach out in that way unless there is a sense in here. And even then, I have to ponder it, over a period of time to be sure that what I'm sensing is real. And up to this point, I have not missed it. And I don't think I will because of that. Sheldon.
Oh, sorry. I was good. Can I read 8 through 11, kind of what I've gone through and translate it a bit differently, and then it also explains the idea of the teacher, because it also talks about the teacher, what the teacher or that particular person who is chosen is willing and has to go through in verse 10.
Go ahead.
So starting with verse 8, Revelations 2 and 8, and to the angel in the church of Smyrna write, these are the things, says he who is the first and the last, the one who was dead and lives. Number 9, I know of your works and tribulation and poverty, except you have a great treasure, which is a great deal, and of the blasphemies of those who say to the others that they are Jews and who are really not, except they are the followers of Satan. Number 10, do not succumb at all to those from whom you expect persecution. Not a thing, but those things that are expected to make you sad. For behold, the devil is prepared to throw some of you in prison, which is more like a house of custody when we say prison, so it's not a physical place, where you will undergo, experience and have 10 days tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I shall give you the wreath of life. 11. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit is telling the churches. The victor shall not be defiled by the second reoccurring death. In regards to the person who is called to teaching, why all the others cannot just automatically be teachers is because the only way for them to be, for lack of better words, a real teacher or a teacher that can actually lead someone is that their heart be right, and what I mean by that heart be right is they not actually be in it for anything that has to do with themselves or any personal gain, etc. There would never be, and this goes for what you were just talking about with the military, etc. There would never be justice on stolen land. So the entire idea, if I were to go and possess and take some land, and in my heart I think I am taking it or getting it, or I actually possess that particular land, then anyone that I am trying to have following or I'm trying to show something, as long as they are following me, I am showing them or trying to show them something that is not true to the nature of who they really are and to the actuality of existence, because that particular thing is already defiled. Catholicism is already defiled for the fact of what is spiritual or what it is actually rooted in, no matter what it espouses and says, is the roots of it are defiled. Versus the person who is a true teacher who doesn't believe that he is stealing or taking anything from anyone, but only seeks to share and guide for that person to actually in a way be better than even he is. And he's not even doing it because for the self-gratification that person is better, just because that person actually truly from the heart wants the best for that person and wants that person to realize who they are. So the true teacher is one, as you can probably say, is pure in heart. And literally, they are sacrificing, willing to sacrifice themselves, their time and all their efforts for that other individual. So that is a teacher, but it takes an awful lot to actually just get to that point. You can't just decide in your head intellectually that I want to be the best, do the best for a person. When we used to, for those who used to be in church or familiar with the gospel song, I don't remember who sang the song or not, but that sold out for Jesus. That's what the sold out would actually mean. The sold out means having, in regards to the other person, you have completely died to yourself. But in that dying to yourself is not as if you don't exist or you're not great, etc. It's that you have come to, not conclusion, but you've come to a realization that there is no limit to the self, and you're getting others to realize there's no limit to the self as well. In my dealings with any particular person, if I already know that there's no limit to the self, then there's no need for me to try to take advantage and get something from that particular person. And that's also why the teacher isn't just automatically going to, the teacher has no need, so to speak, to automatically seek or get something from people. That just doesn't take place. And I'm speaking, when I say all these things, I'm saying them conceptually. I don't know how to necessarily be extremely concise with it. If you have any questions, yeah, go ahead and ask.
Let me say this in regards to what you say concerning teachers. Teachers are not elitists. Teachers are pure servants, period. You can't teach someone to teach. the scriptures. It comes by experience. There's no book that you can read. There's no class that you can take that will teach you how to teach those things that are spiritual. No book. That only comes from having been appointed, chosen, elected, taught, or however you want to term it, by the Creator. That's where it comes from. No one can teach you to do that. I listen at people who speak conceptually about the scriptures, some of whom we teach, and some of them, when it comes to educational, intellectual understandings, they have very little education, but they are able to embrace and regurgitate the concepts that they are given, not necessarily in the language that they receive it, but in the language that they understand. But they're able to do that. Why? Because this is not about, teaching is not about memory. Teaching is, in the regard of in the area of I'm speaking, spiritual teaching is not about memory. It's about absorbing the energy of the words that are being spoken, and that energy becomes a guiding force in your life. And what I mean by that is it guides your life not because it overpowers you. It guides your life only if you desire for it to guide your life. You still have the power to say no. But if you are open to it, it will guide you. And what happens is, if you get to a brick wall and you want to go beyond that, you don't know how, that's when you call someone to get some kind of clarity or direction. What we made a statement once about the greatest rule that we have as a group of teachers is that there are no rules. We simply respect each other. That's it. And if you are not willing to be a servant who's going to face sufferings in some way or another and endure those sufferings, you will not be effective. And what I mean by suffering is not necessarily financial. Suffering can be anything in your life that you want to run away from. Suffering can be in a school. When you see what needs to be done versus what's being done. So when we talk about teaching, I want to talk about rather teaching being chosen. There are many areas, that can be covered in that. Now, I don't want to belabor the point about Christianity, but I guess I need to say this, that Islam, Christianity, and Judaism are the most divisive concepts on earth. They are more divisive than anything else on this earth. They're the most selfish concepts on this earth. Now, at the root, it is not selfish, but it has grown into selfishness because of greed, because of lust, and because of ignorance. If you go to the root of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, you will see a total different picture. If you go to the root of Islam and the root of today's Christianity, and that came out of Catholicism, if you go to the root of Islam, you will find that Islam protected the Christians who refused to follow the Catholic Church. But now it has grown into an adversary. You see what I'm talking about? Of all Christians. Why? Because the true nature of the scriptures, whether it be from the Quran or from the Bible, have not been taught. The true nature has not been put forward. This idea, this concept, this whole concept of the image of Muhammad being offensive, that does not come from the Quran. It comes from the writings. I forget the Arabic word for the writings, but it's something like the Midrash. It comes from the writings that were things that were written 200 years after the death of Muhammad. And it was written by different imams in different places accepting that. So it's not but what has happened, it has become a mutual computer. What has happened is it has become a springboard for hatred, and the Christianity this idea of forcing people to believe what you believe is also a springboard for violence. So, but when we get to the root of it, we began to see that it was different. But when you take intellect and apply it to the scriptures, that's what you get. But when you take spiritual desire and look at the scriptures, you begin to see deeper than what is being taught. If you look at what's being taught, you see all kinds of contradictions in the scriptures until you look at the scriptures. When you look at the scriptures, those contradictions are not there. But when you listen at it being preached, there are all kinds of contradictions there. All kinds. The idea of a Christian nation is no different than the idea of a capitalist nation. They're one and the same. There's no difference. Look at what happened in Africa. When Christians went into Africa, what did they do? Your name is Nkrumah, but they say you can't go to heaven with that name. You got to have a Christian name. So now your name is George. That's your Christian name. That's racism. That's not Christianity. But that's what took place. So what we have to do is understand that all these things that we've talked about modern day Christianity, Islam, etc., is the experience of the first death. But when you begin to see the light of it, you don't die the second death. But if you see the light of it and you refuse to accept it, then you die again. That's what I see. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the scripture says in Hebrews, if you have the one who has come to see the light and walked away from it, the truth rather, then there is no praying them back. You can't pray them back. You can't bring them. They have to come back on their own. So that's a death.
Okay. Point well taken. What does it mean when what does that hurt mean? Explain the hurt that it says, he that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Is that supposed to be there?
Harmed by or suffer the second death.
Okay.
And overcoming is talking about overcoming, for lack of a better term, the popular religious edicts of this world. See, if you look through history, you find that truth has never been popular. Those who seek to do the right thing, that's never been popular. Ever.
thing is the reason why it automatically won't be popular by its very nature is because the person who is avoiding that second death is the trials and tribulations of the persecution that they are, I would say the persecution that they are continuing to receive, or the same people who do not, who are still stuck themselves going through the trials and tribulations, but yet do not understand. So it's the same thing as that which is, for lack of better words, that which is inferior is telling the superior that it is wrong, because the inferior thinking that it is the barometer and it knows best. But just because of its position, that inferior, by nature or by the relationship that I'm explaining, cannot understand that the superior is the superior. It's like they are completely blind to it. So that persecution is going to exist, and the thing is it's almost as if it's a joke, some type of riddle, because that which is superior is all of a sudden thinking is inferior because it's comparing itself to the inferior. So in essence, it's like I'm not inferior enough. I am wrong because I am different from that which is inferior. So that is what that is talking about when it's talking about going through the persecution, and is a continuing cycle, so to speak. Going back to also what you were talking about, the Christian church, when we talk about, the first depth of those trials and tribulations is to come and realize that when we first started off, is for us the things that we create subconsciously, because we are making those things exist. But through that particular trial and tribulation, why that is actually a great deal and is a great joy is because you're realizing that you are in control and you are doing that thing, and you realize what you're realizing is there is no limit to the self. The self is not limited in what it is, what the self is, and what the self is able to do. When we look at Christianity and Catholicism, what is the base of the root of those particular groups or those beliefs, what Pastor just said? It is greed. So subconsciously, automatically, if you have greed, you are, is implicit, or you are implying that there is a limit, there is an enemy, there is an adversary, there is something that is limiting you, and therefore you have to put up some type of fight to resist this thing that is limiting you, and thus that is what it is actually creating. That was something else I was about to say. Now, okay, yes. When we talk about later in this, we talk about not being just passive, and we're talking about fighting, etc. It takes a heck of a fight to be that person who knows or has created these things and has the chance to know that there is no limit to the self, but to actually walk into that continuously, regardless of what everyone else is saying and believing. It takes a great fight not to just automatically fit in, and to keep your beliefs and to hold strong and steadfast in what it is that you know. Because what you're going to see materially or out in the quote-unquote world is going to be something that says something totally different from what you believe truly in your heart. That is a fight.
Why is it also saying unto the angel of the church?
Message.
Okay, so unto the message of the church.
Message to the group.
To the group.
Yeah, that word should be translated group or assembly. There is no word in the scriptures that relates to church as we know it. Not one.
Okay. To the message of the church.
Let me say something here. What does the flag of a nation represent?
Would be
The concept of that nation? When you say the American flag, you think about the concept that this country presents, right?
Yeah.
Or say it lives by.
Mm-hmm.
What does the Christian flag say? Same thing, right?
We have a Christian flag.
Oh,
Got a lot of British Christian flags.
But the Christian flag, the flag that you see as the Christian flag in Vacation Bible School that's sitting in that church is directly related to the Crusades. It's directly related to the Crusades. And every time you pledge allegiance to that flag, every time you submit to that flag, you're submitted to Catholicism. That's what that flag represents, the concepts of Catholicism. No different. And was it Bush or was it Cheney who said that, who made reference to the invasion of Iraq as being a crusade? That was no mistake. They meant that. Bush. There was no mistake. He meant that. This is a Christian battle against Islam. That's exactly what they meant. You cannot. Listen at what happens when we talk about, we take things, little things, and we think that they don't matter, but everything does. Listen to what we're saying. When you pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, you are pledging an allegiance to the concept of the country. When you raise your right hand to enter the military, you swear to defend the Constitution of this country, the principles of this country. When you pledge allegiance to the flag, you do the same thing. And we, from children, are taught to pledge our allegiance to the flag. When you pledge allegiance to the Christian flag, when you display it, the same thing is happening in regards to Catholicism. It is no different. So Martin Luther, having moved out of the Catholic Church, he didn't move out of the Catholic Church. He moved to a different place, but under the same authority. Some of the things that the Catholics did, he did not appreciate in terms of priesthood. He organized the same church in a different way, because the principles did not change. The founding principles remain the same to this day. They do not change. If there is such a difference between Catholicism and Christianity, as it was said to be when we were growing up, why is it now that Catholicism is wholly embraced by Christians, regardless of where they are, especially in this country? Why is it that the Christian leadership always shows up when the Pope appears, even though they say that they are not under that authority and all Catholics going to hell? Why do they show up? Something is missing there. So what am I saying to you? There are no differences between the volatility that exists through Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. All of them are the same. All of them are the same. It is no different if you can heal your body, hear noise in your body, and say a battle is taking place in your body, right? And you bring peace to that noise that's in your body. Imagine that these are religions that I just named, or the thoughts in your body that's colliding with each other. That's what's taking place. And at some point, someone has to bring peace to those bodies that are colliding with each other. And that peace cannot be brought. The settling cannot take place unless there is peace or there is settling in the individual I am, so that it can be settled in the collective Elohim. Am I making sense? Now, how does that happen? How does it take place? How does it happen with you as an individual? How does it take place with you? How do you bring yourself as an individual to a place of balance, peace, or having a settling of the noise or the balance that's within? How do you do that? We talk about what you need to do is take a deep breath and get yourself in a quiet place. Right?
Yeah.
So if we can do that as individuals, then why is it that we feel like it cannot happen collectively. Collectively, we don't have to debate what we believe versus what we've been taught. We are not condemning anyone who believe what they believe. Jesus says, if your words don't condemn you, neither will I. That's our position. I condemn no one for what they do, if that's your business. But at the same time, we have an obligation. To whom much is given, much is required. It has nothing to do with how much money you have as much as it has to do with what understanding you have. There's a greater requirement for those who understand truth. And the requirement is to bring about some sense of peace in the world itself. We are in this country not to live a life of leisure. We're not in this country to gather all we can. We are in this country to bring peace to the world. The journey that brought us to this place where we are to bring peace to the world, it started with the European from the dungeons of England to the shores of South Carolina, Georgia, the East Coast. It started with the Africans being brought here on slave ships. Yes, the land is corrupt because it was stolen. However, there is a thing called purification that can bring that to a place where it is, the forgiveness takes place and the purity follows. We are in this country to bring peace. It is not an accident, nor is it coincidental how we got here and our being here. We must accept that responsibility. And accepting that responsibility, we have to refrain from feeling like we have to battle with everything or as an individual that is thrown at us. Those are distractions to keep us away from the main thing that we are here for. It causes us to lose our focus on what this is supposed to be all about. Right now, we are in a period of time where the light is being shown brighter and clearer than it's ever been in the history of the world. We see things now that the disciples did not see. We see things now that John the Revelator did not understand. When the scripture says in that first verse that these are the revelations of John, which was given to Jesus by God. In other words, what is it saying? It is saying that Elohim gave the human Jesus these revelations to give to the human John. Now, these revelations have been contaminated by false translations, and they have been preached through false doctrine. The lips that have translated and preached revelations are lying lips dripping with blood. The tongues that were designed, that were created to speak the light of revelations are the tongues that are able to see that Jesus did not know this that's in Revelation before it was shown to him by Elohim. That's what the scripture says. Either we believe the scripture or we don't. Now, we are beginning to see what the Revelator meant through these revelations. Revelation is simply the uncovering of something. And we are in an apocalyptic time because an uncovering is taking place. Apocalypse is not about bombs and bullets. Apocalypse is about acceptance and change. It is about awareness and desire. We are in an apocalyptic period and we have to act like it. We cannot be distracted by why me. We cannot be distracted by I don't have enough to subsist. We cannot be distracted by not wanting to be accused of being on the ego trip. We cannot be distracted by religious people who shun us. We have to stay the course. We were brought into this earth to see not just what we are seeing now, but to see far beyond what we can imagine. And that is the only way that we are going to be able to bring a balance into this earth. Those 7 churches represent 7 continents. And when we began to understand the thoughts in the 7 churches, we will understand the thoughts in the 7 continents. And the 7 thoughts, 7 continents is talking about man at his greatest level of completion. That's where we are now. We are at our greatest level of completion. We must have divine completion or divine recreation. And divine recreation only comes when man has reached his highest level of completion. That is in religion, lust, whatever. And when the reason I see that is because 3 is divine completion, 4 is creation, and 3 and 4 is 7. So we have an obligation to disregard all these things that are external and stay focused on the things that are internal. The kingdom is not something that we are looking for, and the kingdom is not in our midst. We are the kingdom. And the kingdom is not established by Jesus. The kingdom is established by all of us. Am I making sense to you?
Yes.
We have a powerful opportunity to wrought change in the earth. And men feel like what we do is boring because it's teaching. It's not excitement. It's not entertainment. It doesn't make you feel good. It just changes your attitude about life itself. That's what this is designed to do. You will not find in the scriptures where you're supposed to be entertained. You will not find anything in the scriptures where you're supposed to be manipulated. What you find in the scriptures is a journey to light. It's a journey to recognizing Elohim. It's a journey that Adam must take in order to become the creator that it was created to be. Any questions about that? And I know I said a mouthful. We can educate the whole world, but that will not change mankind. It will not change. Sheldon?
Yes, I want to make 3 points on different things that you talked about. So in regards to the country, we talk about with the land being stolen, and we talked about the principles of Catholicism and those religions that we talked about as we know them today and as they're taught. And then Pastor talked about we can actually change that and we determine that. So the thing is that we've talked about it in the past, but it's definitely applicable here, is that in the moment, in the present moment is our, the moment is our, is where all of our power lies. But in the present moment, you not only change the moment, but you also have control with the past and the future. So you control everything with that particular point. Now, how do you do that? You do that because of your intentions and where your heart is, etc., and your particular growth. So those things that may have been to being bad or may have been viewed as being bad before are automatically changed in their nature. So it's the same thing as something that, some type of tribulation that you went through, but all of a sudden that particular tribulation was something great that you actually went through, especially when you see the manifestation of that particular thing. So we're actually changing something from the past that was negative. We're making it positive. And making that particular thing positive makes it positive in the present moment, and it also makes the ramifications of that particular incident or thing taking place positive in the future. So in the present moment, you determine everything that is, that ever will be, and that has ever been. That is changed instantaneously. And that's what he's talking about in regards that is concerned. Go ahead, ask. I'm sorry. Miss Barbara?
Audrey.
Audrey.
I mean, sorry about that.
No,
I'm looking at Audrey, but I can't even see Miss Barbara, but Barbara came out.
Okay. No, I thought she had her hand up too. Anyway, so what I hear both of you saying is that in regards to this chaos we're feeling, whether politically, whether Boko Haram or ISIS or whoever, whatever, the way we deal with that is that we, instead of trying to resist it, just be who we are, like we talked about the other week, recognizing and starting to be who we are, and that will take care of it.
Yes, so what we think of a particular event, we are continuing to create that particular thing. Now let's take the idea of the Europeans coming over here and, let's say, distilling the land. Let's tease out that idea. For an example. So Europeans came over here, they stole the land. A lot of Native Americans, of course, were persecuted. Eventually what ended up happening, fast forward today, the particular country that the Europeans actually created went and just has this huge, great empire, capitalistic empire that takes over the world and let's just say controls every single person. Now let's look at let's take a step back away from that idea and what if and I'm just not speculating, but I'm proposing, postulating. Let's assume that through that particular event, that particular event was actually necessary for mankind to basically go through this long chain of events to come and start to realize that they are not human through what at one point seemed like it was complete destruction, but it was just a journey. Now all of a sudden that thing that was terrible, which was a horrible trial and tribulation, was great. Let's say through all of those people who we thought died and were treated so badly, etc. Let's postulate further to say, okay, now we realize that all those things that we thought were death were never even death to begin with, and that there has never been anything that was actually born. We just did not realize and understand that. So now through this entire process of things that seem to be terrible, now were necessary to come to this greater understanding of creativity, etc. Versus the alternative of that is just seeing everything as being, I guess, bad and negative, and then throughout the entire journey of what we're actually doing, we have that reoccurring death that we actually talked about.
What is the commonality between the chaos?
Between what?
With the chaos, Islam, Christianity. What's the commonality?
Between chaos and
Between what is that? What do their goals? All Muslims think that everybody in the world should be Muslim. Christians think that everybody in the world should be Christians. That's where the conflict lies.
It continues to, the commonality is to distract us,
That's it.
to keep us from focusing on the fact that we are all one, that we are more than people who should be fighting, that we are gods, that we are one with our Creator. And that all this other stuff is just, it's not important.
And look at what happened. Jews lost sight of a spiritual Messiah and began to look for a physical man Messiah, and not understanding the nature, messianic nature. And now Christianity is doing the same thing. So if you're always looking for the next generation to do it, it never gets done. If we're always wondering, why is it that, what makes us different and what makes us believe that we were chosen to do what we're doing, it never gets done. Someone in the world has to be chosen. Someone in the world has to make up their mind that regardless of the distractions, we're going to stay the course. Someone has to do that. The Creator has given us opportunity to experience power. And He's given us the opportunity to experience power and to see that we do have life in our hands and in our tongues. He gave us the power to do that by virtue of how we are able to deal with the weather. He gave us the power to do that by virtue of the way we've been able to deal with Carla and ourselves. He's given us that in that we've gotten insight into understanding that is our battle is not against Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, or anything. We are not battling, we are traveling. We are moving. And the movement is not to change anything. The movement is to bring about an awareness of everything. Does that make sense? We have to do that. We are here for that purpose. Last week, there were some people who leapt upon me because of my hidden ego and talking about recognizing who we are. You understand? We have to get beyond that. We have to get beyond that. We have to not separate from the physical realm, but we have to recognize that what we do in the physical realm is to sustain us and this realm until a change comes. And what we do in this realm, we don't do it because we are of it. We are in this realm, but we are of the other realm. In other words, we're in this earth, but we're not of the earth, the world. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That when we begin to see that, then we can rise above all those things that troubles us. Like, I remember how difficult it was at times for me to say certain things that I knew to be the truth outside of Him. That doesn't bother me anymore. I'm good with that. I found myself wishing that the stuff that was said was recorded at the funeral, right? Why did I want it recorded? I found myself wishing that it was because I know that secretly they're going to listen and be critical. It doesn't matter as long as it's out there, and it was recorded. So, and nobody asked them to do it. Nobody knows the reason they did it, but it was. It's not enough for me to do it. All of us have to be beyond that. All of us have to be at a place where we are very much aware of who we are and accept that, all of us. See, Audrey, it's simple to say, but we have to get over ourselves in order to do it.
It's the only hindrance, right?
Yeah, we are our only hindrance. You can't stop me. I can't stop you. You can only stop yourself. And and when you think about it, when we cease being our own hindrance, that's when we truly become one. When we cease being our own hindrance, that's when we truly become one. It's like just throwing up your hands and going with the flow, as opposed to resisting. You don't have to understand everything yet. Whatever you're supposed to understand will be shown. I do believe that everything in the scriptures are supposed to be understood. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. It would be crazy to write a book, give it to your child, and tell them you won't understand it. What's the point? That's crazy. But I also believe that, as the book says, you won't understand it without teachers. That's the bottom line. And we have actually given teachers a bad rap in that we feel like they are separate when they are actually one with. There are times when it is necessary to go into the cave to be refreshed so that you will have something to give. There are times when it's necessary to go into the cave to be enlightened so that you can be light. It's just that simple. Are there any questions or comments about what has been said?
Yes, you said earlier you were talking about Revelation not being correctly taught, and I wanted to, with the first and second death, go to a few scriptures, two in Revelations 20. And one in Revelations 21 in regards to the second and first death. For 20 and 14, speaking in Aramaic interpreted version, 20, 14, and 15, and death and hell were thrown into the sea of fire. This is where the final death happens. That fiery sea. And if a human being is not found written in the book of life, they are thrown into that sea of fire. Which is, we were taught to be something terrible, but which is not, because it's just a reoccurring thing going back to the first death that has to happen at least once already. Then we go to verse 8, and this is going back onto the pillars, but more importantly, not to be thought of as them and the people that we've used examples to understand these concepts that we've actually explained and talked about, but also to apply these to ourselves as well. So Revelations 21 and 8. As for the traitors, and the traitors is those who are fearful for their own safety, and the unfaithful, those who do not walk in and believe who they truly are, and the sinners and the corrupt, those who are confused about who they are, and when you say those who are corrupt or those who do harm and cheat themselves, so to speak. is basically what you're doing once you're corrupt, or you're corrupt to any individual or anything like that. You're corrupt to yourself because you hinder and undermine yourself and who you really are. And the killers and the fornicators, anything that you are trying to annihilate or to kill anything, you do that also to yourselves, even if you don't realize it, because you try to kill and annihilate the fabric, or if you want to look at it as the source of what and who you are. And the fornicators would be those who, kind of like when we're talking about corrupt, who cheat themselves. And the witches and the idol makers, I'm saying you put things, I'll be very careful how I say this. The power that you are, that you deny, and you put it in something away or apart from yourself, and you say that you not possess it, or you do not have control or access to it, so to speak. And all the liars, their portion is the sea that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the reoccurring death. Only thing that this is saying is that as long as you, as long as we walk into these particular things, we experience a reoccurring death. However, when you go back to Revelation 20 and 14 and 15, when it said that those people will have to be thrown in the, will be thrown in the fiery fire. The only thing that is saying is the fiery fire is that particular thing that purifies. That is the trial and tribulation, which is a blessing that you will have the reap of life, and that you will no longer experience trial and tribulations and that reoccurring death. Not only is this is not a process, a punishment, but it is a process that is completely necessary for us to realize and understand who and what we are. And as long as we refuse, I don't even want to say refuse, or don't understand who and what it is that we really are, we continue to go through that process. But even that process in itself shouldn't be looked at as being something bad and negative. It is, if you wanted to look at it from the other viewpoint, and look at it the glass full, the reoccurring depth is that reoccurring opportunity to understand who and what we really are, as if that particular opportunity has not been lost. We always have the opportunity to do so. That is totally different from how we have been taught that what Revelation is actually saying. It's almost as if this is an ever-giving gift or opportunity, a chance to realize who and what we really are. So from one hand, you can go from looking at all of this fiery death as being punishment to this fiery death being a great gift.
Well, it says the word hell, the root for the word hell is to perceive. And the root for the word lake is haven.
The root for the word what?
Lake is haven.
Haven?
Yeah, H-A-V-E-N. It's a haven. So it says it. So it's talking about the perception, all your perceptions and the ideas of separation being cast in, actually being purified in a haven. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about what we have been told that there's this huge lake and death and hell is going to be cast into that. If the scriptures are spiritual, and it is declared to be by virtue of Jesus having said, "For my word is spirit and life," spiritual life. So if the words are spiritual, then there cannot be a physical lake of which he's speaking. The idea of a lake was designed to frighten people into joining the church or becoming a part of a movement. That this revelation is not talking about that at all. And we looking at this again and seeing where the last sentence said, "and this is the second death," then that's what we've been talking about. Perceptions being purified, That's what we've been talking about. The idea of separation, the idea of separation no longer exists. That's what we've been talking about. So that's when the second death is when we get rid of these things, the perception of that, of things that are not true. So there is no way that you can actually look at the origin of the words, or the origin of the writer and his origin. There's no way you can look at that and perceive it, see it any other way. But if you look at it from the way it was translated for the purpose of frightening. It was not translated for the purpose of understanding. And even if you look at it, say hell. If it's hell as you see it, it said hell will be purified. It didn't say the people. It doesn't say anything in there about a soul being cast in hell. So it says hell will be. So in order to get around that, you go to hell, then all the hell will be cast in.
Yeah.
But so there are, here in Revelations, there's so many misconceptions, and I believe that we're at this point for a reason of understanding it. You don't usher in an age if you don't understand at least some parts of what's been ushered in, because if you don't, when it happens, you won't recognize it. It is important that we be able to recognize it. So, having solved all the problems in the world,
Thank you.
and brought peace that surpasses all understanding
All right now.
to every heart and mind, and having brought an end to the conflicts on the earth, we will depart until next week.
Now we can sing, let the church say amen.
But it is necessary for us to recognize that.
You know, me and Audrey was talking about that song that they were singing at the end of the funeral, let the church say amen. And it's because of what you had said.
That makes sense.
It does.
Well, actually, when you think about it, what amen means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was singing it the whole week
Yeah.
after. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, why is it sticking with me?
But that's, okay. Good to see you. That's it.
All right. Amen. Good to see you.